In this video we'll see how to set up FluxCD in our local k8s cluster. So in last video we saw how to set up FluxCLI and local Kubernetes cluster using kind. So for setting up FluxCD in local k8s cluster, we have some prerequisites. For example, you need to have a GitHub account, and you need to create this FluxCD infra SOT. You can give it any name, but I gave this name. You also need to create a PAT token in GitHub. So this token will be used by FluxCD agents to talk to your GitHub repositories. So why do we need this repository? It is for storing our infrastructure related code. So infrastructure is, we are now setting up FluxCD, so all the code related to the FluxCD controllers or components will be stored in this repository. So we have FluxCLI, and we discussed when we were discussing in key terminologies video that when we bootstrap, what happens is it creates, or you can say it installs GitOps agents, so which in turn installs all these controllers. Where does it install? It installs on this Kubernetes cluster in a namespace called flux-system. Right, so now we'll go ahead and see how to do this local setup. And in a GitHub account I have already created this source of truth repository, and I have also created a PAT token. Please check online how to create a PAT in GitHub. Now here we saw in last video, when we created local Kubernetes cluster, in our local Kubernetes cluster we do not have a namespace which represents to FluxCD, right? And as I was mentioning in the prerequisites section, we need a GitHub user account. That is, let's say in my case it is my user, and GitHub PAT account. These are two prerequisites. So what we need to do is we need to set it as a global variable, and I have also set the PAT token of mine. And now what we have to do is we have to fire this bootstrap command. So as I was mentioning in here, using FluxCLI we start the bootstrap command. So this will install these things. So what we are saying is flux start the bootstrap of in the GitHub account. Here we have the owner of my user, and we gave the repository of FluxCD infra, and branch is main, and path is deploy infra. So this is the directory which will be created in this repository. And the personal is we are telling this Flux CLI to use the personal token which we have set as a global variable. So I'm going to copy this command and paste it here, and now I'll start. So this is going to set up the complete FluxCD system. It is going to install all the controllers in our Kubernetes cluster. So this is going to take a little bit of time. So if you see here, here it has created Flux system namespace, and think it has also created all the infrastructure code in the names in the repository which I have given. I'll show you once the complete process is done. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video for a minute so that it completes its process. Okay, it seems it has completed. It took around 10 minutes of time. If we closely observe what it has done, so it has installed components in Flux system namespace, and it has generated a secret like a public key. It's a combination of user and the token which we have created given, and this key will be used by the Flux system to, and this key will be stored in our GitHub account and will be used by FluxCD to perform all the transactions. So if you see here, it has installed a hem controller, customized notification, and source controllers. So here we got one failure also. We can check this later. It says health check failed. Okay, no worries. Now what I'll do is I'll do once again k8s. So this time we have this Flux system namespace created, and if I check kubectl get deploy from this namespace, then here we have a set of controllers, or you can say agents, which we were talking in this source controller, customize hem, and notification, right? And as we have passed repository FluxCD infra SOT, so the environment which it has created, the system installation which it did for FluxCD. Now let us go back to our repository and do a refresh here, and if you see, it has created this code repository code over here. Here it says deploy infra because we gave this path over here and in that Flux system, and it has created these YAMLs. Here if you see, the namespace is Flux system, and some this custom resource definitions which will be used to deploy this custom solutions on Kubernetes. So it is for the notification, and this custom resource definition is for source controller, and so on. So for each controller it has defined custom resource definition. And if we go to sync YAML, here it is pointing to this repository, the one which we gave, and here it is set for like every 10 minutes it is going to, so for every 1 minute this source controller, what it does is for every 1 minute it is going to check in this repository if it has any new changes or not. And in, as I said, in this repository we have this customization way of declaring the manifest files, right? So that's how we have this customization controller created here. So the customization controller is there, part of this component, but this the approach now is being used is customization, because we have this customization manifest. So in here if you see, we for every 1 minute it is going to pull the source code from our this FluxCD infra SOT, and for every 10 minutes this customization controller is going to deploy whatever the changes it observes in this repository. Right, so this marks the end of this video. Like in this one we saw how to create our local FluxCD setup. In next video what we'll do is we'll create our custom solution, and we'll set up a Flux for that, and we'll see how FluxCD works with that. So that's it. Thank you for your time. See you in next video.